So after investigating first the sources and uses of cash and then doing your vertical and horizontal analysis, the next step would be a ratio analysis. I'm not going to go through here how to calculate ratios. You can see the ratio formulas if you go to the summary tab in the workbook. I'm just going to go through how we should analyze these ratios. So the first ones we're going to look at are the liquidity ratios, and the reason we do ratios is that they eliminate the problem of comparing size. So we can perform ratio analysis on every company and we can compare across companies. There's lots of different financial ratios out there, and sometimes they're even calculated differently. So you need to figure out what is the most important to you or what makes the most sense to you. There's some great software programs that can do calculations for ratios. And I think you need to focus on how they're computed, what it's measuring, how high or low it might be and what that's going to tell us, and how they could be improved going forward. So that's always the consideration after you perform the analysis. So liquidity ratios or short-term solvency ratios are really how the firm is going to be able to pay its bills over the short term. This is definitely an important thing for creditors to look at, so banks, suppliers, and there's a few that are kind of the common ones. So we're looking at more of the common ones here. So the current ratio looks at the total current assets over the current liabilities. Current ratio should be over 1, so you should have at least $1 in assets for every dollar in liabilities. Some say 2 as a rule of thumb, but it really depends on the industry. You don't want to have too much sitting in cash or current assets because then that money is not working for you. So you really want to compare to the industry. So in this case here, we could say that ProofRock is definitely okay. They're very close to the industry in both years. The next one is the quick ratio. So the quick ratio looks at the current assets without inventory. The reason we pull inventory out is because it's the least liquid asset. And the book value and market value aren't always the same. There's lots of things that can impact that, like obsolescence and spoilage or theft. So in this case for ProofRock, when we take the inventory out, you'll see there isn't that significant increase year over year like you saw here with the current ratio. So even though this is still an okay ratio for the company, it's something you might want to look at because obviously inventory is moving slowly. And we can check out the turnover ratios to help us kind of better understand what's going on with inventory. The cash ratio really just looks at cash as a percentage of total current liabilities. So in this case, everything is okay. Net working capital. So our net working capital measure here is looking at the percentage of net working capital to our assets. And again, you can see here that we were on the low side for net working capital in 2014, but ProofRock has definitely improved, and in 2015 we have a lot more in net working capital, and that was largely because we had an increase in cash, an increase in AR, and they paid down the current liabilities. So this one is okay as well. The interval measure is looking at how long a company would last in terms of if they had to liquidate their assets and pay off their operating costs, how long could they last in days. And again, you see here that they're fairly close to the industry in terms of the number of days that they could last. So overall, the company is fairly liquid and doesn't seem to have any problems with liquidity.